the race through oneness come the fall.
Hello, and thanks for joining Southeast Speaks, a work of the Southeast Institute of Biblical Studies. Once a week, we meet with students, faculty, alumni, and friends who support the work of training gospel preachers. Enjoy today's discussion, and be sure to like, share, and subscribe.
Hello, and welcome to Southeast Speaks. I'm Will Hanstein, the director of the Southeast Institute of Biblical Studies, and joining me today is Gary Hampton. He's the preacher for the Siwell Road Church of Christ in Jackson, Mississippi. It's very good to have you, and appreciate you taking the time to give us a little bit, at least, of your expertise and advice.
Well, it's good to be here. Thank you.
So, just to start things off, how does it feel to be the second best director in Southeast history? No, just kidding. I've actually used that
sure
before.
I could reach that.
No, well, yeah, that's true. No, there's been a long line of just excellent men who have been the director of East Tennessee School of Preaching and Missions, or as it's called now, Southeast, and you were one of the longest tenured directors, actually. You were the director here from 2006 to 2012, and what are some of your favorite memories when you were here?
I think the favorite memories would all involve watching a student go from being a fellow who really wants to learn to being a very competent in the Word of God, but confident in the pulpit, presenting the Word in a very powerful way that resonates with people. I'm thinking about one guy in particular, Mike Morgan. He was early on, and Mike was a great guy when he came here, but when he left, he could step into the pulpit, even at lectureship with hundreds of people,
right,
and could deliver a powerful message from the Word of God. That's most of the memories would go to something like that.
Well, great. What are some of the challenges? Maybe, without getting, maybe too specific or whatever. But what were some of the challenges you faced? Because, surely there were some challenges.
Well, there were. Of course, some of the challenges are just people are people.
Mm-hmm.
And so a man will come with every desire and every intent of becoming a preacher and being able to work for the Lord full time, and then he will fall prey to temptation, and he cannot remain until he gets his life straightened out. And he may, certainly we're as forgiving as the Lord is, but he's got to straighten things out to be able to come back. That would be one type of challenge.
Right.
The other, I think, is it's helping people to see that when they give money, they're helping each student.
Mm-hmm.
That's for one reason that I changed the name from the general fund to the tuition-free fund.
Right.
Because any other school you go to, you have to pay tuition.
Mm-hmm.
I say any other, most of the schools of preaching, you do not. But in a school of preaching, it is the brethren giving of their means that enables, and now we can look at every single man here and say, you're able to be here because the brethren gave. Right. And I wish the brethren would see that image of those individuals instead of that, spreadsheet that an accountant puts together.
Right. Well, what I've found is most brethren don't realize that, number one, we are tuition free. We don't charge anything for a student to come here, which certainly makes it much more feasible for a man to make a career change or in his retirement come here. But the money that churches and individuals do give, by supporting a teacher, you allow this school to take place.
Right.
By supporting a student as far as his living expenses, you allow preacher training to occur, and it's all done. A guy leaves here with no debt, instead of at a 4-year university where he might have $120,000 or more in debt. and unless people are preaching at congregations that I'm not aware of, that's kind of a hard debt to pay back.
It is.
If you're a preacher, and so I can certainly appreciate that challenge. So, what can you tell us? What drew you to preaching in the first place? I know your dad was a preacher and very well thought of preacher out west primarily. What drew you to preaching?
It's the opportunity really to help people. That obviously there's the physical help, and preachers get to be involved with that. We go to hospitals, nursing homes. We help people during time of loss, when they're at the funeral home. But more than that, it's helping them with to have the opportunity to achieve eternity with Christ. Obviously, He paid the price, but some folks don't know about it. And getting to tell that to people and hopefully in a feeling kind way, reach out to them. That's pretty much what drew me to preaching.
That's good. How old were you when you said, I want to be a preacher? You kind of made that.
My mama said I was saying it when I was 3 years old.
Okay, so a long time ago then. Maybe not that long.
No, it's a long time ago.
Well, that's fantastic. And what are some of your favorite preaching memories? Not just, being director at the school, but just looking back throughout all that you've gone through and experienced. What are some of your favorite preaching memories?
Oh, man, it's pretty hard to say. When I was 14 years old, I got to preach for the first time, really. And two really fine brothers. In fact, I got to see one of them just a few days ago. Took a youth group out to Van Horn, Texas. Most people only know where that is. And I got to preach. And when I preached that day, literally delivering a sermon that my dad had written, not my own, but I'm a extemporaneous. Even then, I was. So it was mine in a way, but it was his. He wrote it, and had 10 responses. And of course, I got a
started off with a bang.
Yeah, I got a kick out of it when we went back home. They all said, "Well, to my dad, I don't know if you can compete with this guy." So that's a humorous memory within our own family, I guess.
But I bet that was very encouraging, though, for people to even joke around about that with your dad. That had to be a great encouragement to you.
Was.
To hey, you've got a talent here to do this, and so that's a very good story.
Well, some of the others most of the rest of them literally do involve getting to be involved with various preacher training schools. I assisted Brother Holland in Nashville School of Preaching with his help and the church at Creve Hall's help. We were their first and most successful satellite campus for the school. I got to be the director there. Coming here, the amazing thing
was that in Cookeville.
Yes,
correct.
Yes,
that you were preaching at the time, and
yes.
Right.
In fact, I was preaching in Cookeville when I first went to Nashville School of Preaching. Worked with Brother Holland. I'd go down on Thursdays and would teach 3 classes. They have hour classes,
right?
So 6 to 7. Then we had chapel 7 to 7:30. Then I taught the 7:30 class and the 8:30 class, and I'd drive home.
Oh wow!
So in the winter that was most interesting. Sometimes going up to the plateau, but that happened there, and then coming here and realizing that when I teach here, that the multiplying effect is almost beyond the imagination.
Yeah.
If you're teaching 12 men, one year I particularly remember we had one class that was 12 in number, and to think that if every one of those guys preached to 100 when they get out, then instead of me preaching to 600 like I did in Cookeville, and I loved it, now I was preaching to 1,200 every Sunday.
Right.
And then the next year we graduate more, and the next year we graduate more, and eventually it's like beyond the imagination what's going on. So those are, and then going to mission points. I've gotten to teach for Bear Valley in Fiji, and I've taught in Malawi 4 different years, teaching their preachers a little bit, trying to refine them and help them just a little bit. So
very good.
Those are some of them.
Yeah, well, that's fantastic. So those are some of the other things, I guess, that you're involved in. The work at Siwell Road is going well.
Seems to be there. It's a good church. We've when I got there, oddly enough, the youth man was a young man. He was a boy when I knew him in Valdosta, and I didn't teach him at Georgia Christian School, but Teresa taught his sister at Georgia Christian School. So he introduced himself. We didn't know him. I mean, we did, but we didn't, because he's so changed, now full grown. He's a wonderful guy to work with, and we've got a lot of things going. When the pandemic hit, we already had, according to other brethren, this is not my own assessment, but we had one of the best live streams in the country, I guess, when the pandemic hit. And there were a lot of people. We have people in North Carolina. We have people in Tasmania that use our live stream for their worship. So
it's fantastic.
It's just it's a very innovative church, and we're fully integrated long before I ever got there. We don't match quite the population breakdown in the area, but we get real close.
So you also do some things for the Gospel Broadcasting Network, correct?
Yes.
And some things for Polishing the Pulpit too.
Oh yeah.
Can you tell us about each of those?
Okay. Gospel. It's interesting. I was actually at the lectures here after I'd left, and staying with Jody Apple and Evelyn, and Mark Teskey was staying there. And he told me how that they were moving the studios of GBN from Chattanooga to Olive Branch. So now they're, instead of Chattanooga, which was probably 7 hours from me, 6, 7. Instead of that, it was 3.5 to go to
a little bit
to
easier
Olive
drive,
Branch.
yeah.
And I said, what do you all need? And we talked about it. I said, well, I'd like to do a Bible study program. And he said, oh, that'd be great, because they had 2 or 3 worship services that they put on every Sunday, but they didn't have any Bible study, any Bible classes.
Wow.
So I started, and now I've done, I don't know, it's somewhere past 200 half-hour programs. I've done Genesis, Acts, Joshua and Judges, 1st, 2nd Corinthians, Ephesians, 1 Timothy, all those. I've done hermeneutics, which we didn't call it that. We called it how to interpret the Bible. The brethren would glaze their eyes over if I said hermeneutics, but we did that. I taught my whole church growth class that I taught here. They videoed that whole thing as a special set of programs. So
that's fantastic.
I get to go up there
good.
Every so often.
Now, Polishing the Pulpit.
Polishing the Pulpit, usually they have me speak probably 3 times, at least that's the scheduled number of times. And then I do the meet and greet for preachers looking for churches and churches looking for preachers. And then I work with Kirk Brothers and Justin Rogers. We teach young men how to preach. So you have to be in the, they manage it. So I think it's the 12 to 14-year-old age group. And we've had some unbelievable speakers. It's fun being with those young men. Even those young men will start in their 12-year-old year that we can't even get them to get up and speak in front of the group in the day we do that.
Right.
But then by the 14-year age, they're very confident in speaking. It's just exciting to see that kind of growth. And then, of course, this, according to Alan Webster, they have me as a last-minute fill-in. One year they called me. I literally left a day early. We were in Chattanooga at 6 p.m. and he called and said, "We need you to speak tomorrow at 6 p.m. on the following subject." Of course, my library was not in Chattanooga, and the subject was the new hermeneutic, which meant
there you go.
Which meant I was going to have to do a fair amount of research, but with the help of particularly Phil Sanders, and a long night of study and
Right.
a long next day, I was able to do that. So, when Brother Holland got sick, I did 5 of his lectures for him, and it's just polishing posts a lot of fun, a lot of fellowship among brethren.
Tell me a little bit about your family. Obviously, you're married, have children.
Yeah, Teresa. I'm married to Teresa. I have literally, in some cases, been introduced as Teresa's husband.
Well, that makes sense.
It does, because she's a good writer, and she's according to all the women. I obviously don't get to hear her speak at Ladies' Days, but the women love her. PTP. The women always want to be in her class. So she's.
I think you were telling me the other day that quite often you get invited to speak just because you're going to happen to be there on a Sunday because they've already invited her up for the main gig.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's true. Sometimes they'll say, "Well, who is this guy?" They knew who she was. They just didn't know who I was. But, so that happened. We have a son, Nathan, who lives in Kentucky.
Okay,
and loves to work with horses. I think that's why he's drawn to that state. But that's not his job, but that's what he likes to do. Right. And then our daughter Tabitha is I usually tell people she's a TV guru. She works for ESPN now owns a group that is called Ultimate Fighting Championship, which is mixed martial arts.
Right.
Tabitha's one of their big producers and stuff like that. And so that's our family.
Not one of the fighters.
No, she never did. No, no. You don't. I don't want to fight with her, but no, she doesn't.
Well, very good. As you know, and you're wearing the lapel pin right now. Actually, we're about to finish up our 51st year of training preachers since February of 1971. The East Tennessee / Southeast, under the oversight of the elders of the Carnes Church of Christ, have been training preachers and training them faithfully. And obviously, the providence of God and His will plays a part in that. But what's made it work? What's made this school last when so many other schools haven't? What's made this school continue to be faithful when so many other schools haven't? What has made it work?
2 elders in the beginning with one especially with an unbelievable vision for the future began this work.
Right.
The Carnes Church was mission minded. In fact, it was a mission work established initially by a church in Oak Ridge. And this church has, in my estimation at least, I'm not God, but it's far exceeded anything that was done in Oak Ridge.
Sure.
And because of all that it had to do, but particularly because of this school, it's an extremely family-oriented church. And when I say family-oriented, I don't mean your family, my family. I mean the greater family of God. You can't come here and not be accepted, be loved. And as a man who's decided to pull up all his roots and to quit maybe a very lucrative job, and we've had some guys come here who had some pretty lucrative jobs, to come here and not be accepted would be very difficult. But to come in and be loved and be cared for, to find these people constantly interested in your well-being, not just while you're here, it's from now on.
Right.
I know guys right now who every time they come for the lectureship, they stay with the same family that they used to associate with years ago. And that really is an amazing way to set it apart. You want to go a step further, while there are numerous schools of preaching, you're not going to find one that easily competes with the wonderful preachers that Southeast has as teachers.
Right.
And that makes a difference. You got to have somebody that not just has a passion for preaching, but knows how to use that to reach the masses. So, and I think you've got that here at Southeast.
I appreciate that. One last question. why should somebody come to Southeast?
Well, part of
Other than because it's the best school in the Brotherhood, why
Well,
should somebody come to Southeast?
Okay. You're probably not going to like the first part of this answer. I know several good schools of preaching. And if a guy tells me that he's looking for a school of preaching, then I recommend this one, and I'll explain that in a minute.
Mhm.
But if he tells me I'm going to, and I can name several other schools that I know are sound and they
Right, of
do a good
course.
job, then I'm not going to dissuade him from doing that. In fact,
Right.
I got in trouble years ago. I've never gotten invited back to a particular congregation because one of their own wanted to go to a different school of preaching.
Really?
And I didn't dissuade him. I said, well, that's a good school,
Right.
because it is a good school.
Well, we shouldn't be in
Yeah.
competition.
Yeah.
The goal is to train preachers to
Yeah.
save souls. The goal is not to, see how many students we can get or
Yes,
something like
that's
that.
exactly right. But why come here? First of all, and I don't think we're the only ones, but we're among a very few, if maybe only two,
Mhm.
that have a very inexpensive housing that the
Mhm.
school owns
Mhm.
and takes care of. You do have to pay a rent because obviously, but it's a low rent.
Well,
It's
the only
insignificant.
reason we charge it is just for the maintenance.
Well, that's what I was going to
Yeah,
say.
we
You
don't
know,
turn a profit
if
by
you're
any
gonna put on a
stretch.
new roof,
Hmm.
the money's got to come from somewhere.
Right.
And if you don't collect it from the students in the form of a really modest
Right.
rent, and in this
Mhm.
modern era, the word modest is probably not even accurate.
Yeah, it's very inexpensive.
It's extremely, but that money's put into a pool. And if we need a new roof, well, that can cost multiple
Mhm.
thousands of dollars. Well, we
Right.
can pay for it,
Right.
So, but inexpensive housing that is nearby, the wonderful relationship you're going to have with this
Mhm.
church, as I said, not just now, but
Right.
from now on, really.
Mhm.
And then personally, I like the intimacy, and it's kind of hard to explain. I don't mean we have T90 classes,
Right.
but there's a camaraderie and an intimacy
Mhm.
within each student group that comes through that kind of parallels that family relationship we
Right.
have with the church.
Well, Brother Hampton, we sure do appreciate you and appreciate all you have done for this school, both while you were director and even since then. You certainly have made my job a lot easier. I know when and even now, but when I became the director, everybody I talked to that had come to school under you, all the students and that had graduated under you, just the highest of praise.
Hmm.
And so I appreciate you on a personal level, appreciate you very much, certainly on a professional level too, but you've been a great encouragement to me, and thank you for taking the time to do this, and thank you for joining us for this interview with Brother Gary Hampton, and we hope to see you next time on Southeast Speaks.